Hello and welcome to this webinar to present the latest service release of Euclid 6. This is version 8.13.2 released in November 2024. I'm François Le Goff, working in the European Chemicals Agency in the Euclid team, and I will introduce this webinar to you today. I will start with a recap on the release plan. As you can see here, we are at the end of 2024, and we had scheduled the service release at the end of October. Due to issues identified during the last testing cycle for this release, we decided to postpone the release for a couple of weeks, and this release version 8.13.2 was published on the Euclid website on the 11th of November 2024. Next year, at the beginning of the year, we will have an optional service release, mainly containing bug fixes and also configuration changes, such as changes to the validation rules configuration or the report templates files. After that, at the end of April, we have our usual format update release. This will be Euclid 6 version 9, and this will include migration to make sure that all the format changes can be implemented correctly on the Euclid side. And later during the year, we'll have another optional service release at the end of August, beginning of September. Same as the one at the beginning of the year, it will contain only bug fixes and configuration changes. And finally, in October, again, we'll have another service release bringing bug fixes and improvements. I will give you an overview of the release scope. So as I said before, this is a service release and no format changes are included. This contains only fixes and improvements, and you can find all the details on the release notes that we published on the Euclid website. Some examples of fixes included. I will list, for example, the comparison of document that was not working in the previous versions of Euclid. So if you want to compare two documents and not two dossiers in full, you are now able to do that in the latest release of Euclid. We identified also some issues in the text wrapping for long strings, which did not look good on the user interface, and this has been corrected as well. An issue was identified also at the level of the text file upload in order to populate table information or information in repeatable blocks of information in Euclid. There was an incorrect mapping of phrases for uploading pick list content, and this has been corrected as well. We also fixed the source of issues coming from the upgrade of Euclid that was displaying warning messages for some users. So the root cause of this issue were fixed, and no warning messages should be displayed anymore. We also identified an issue with dossier deletions after the content of the dossier was extracted to a dataset. So this is fixed as well in this service release. Let's move on to improvements included in this release. You can see most of them here on this slide. And when you see blue glasses on the slides, it's an indication that these specific improvements will be demoed later on by my colleagues. So we made some improvements at the level of the data entry. Here I will just say a couple of words about the rich text field full screen mode. It's a useful feature in case you have to manage a big amount of text in some of the fields of Euclid or complex tables. You can now use the full space of your screen to edit this content. We have also improved the importing of datasets directly to Euclid database by remembering the overwrite behavior that you select on the dashboard. So then this is redirected to the advanced settings. We have improved printing and reporting by, for example, implementing a new report to list the data waivers included in a dossier or in a dataset. And we are also continuing our improvements to prepare for the transitions from the generation of rich text files to docx output. And there is also a clearly visible change on the dashboard where we have made some modifications to the way we display number of dossiers and datasets when you open Euclid. I wanted also to include some specific fixes and improvements for specific groups of users. So I will start with a couple of changes relevant to users using Euclid to prepare rich dossiers. We have made some fixes to existing validation rules and improved them without changing their scope. So there is no change in the data requirements, just fixes and improvements of existing rules. We have one new business rule, though, for specific dossier type, which is the downstream user notification of authorized uses. Under the EU classification, labeling and packaging regulation, we have some changes that are relevant to poison centers notifications. There we have extended the labeling calculator to take into account non-GHS hazard statements. We have also included the new hazard statements introduced in April this year for endocrine disruptors for human health, and this is now possible to be selected when specifying specific concentration limits. The PCN report was updated as well to display these new hazard classes. If I move on to changes that are relevant to the biocidal products regulation, this includes also the production of the summary of product characteristics report. There we have allowed the entry of parameters for two precautionary statements, P260 and P261. We have included an update of translations and made several fixes to the SPC report in general. And finally, I would like to mention that a new set of rules, warnings, so not failures, only warnings, have been introduced for BPR active substance applications. And we have published the list of this set of rules on the Euclid website on the page dedicated to data validation. I will continue also with the preparation for the implementation of the EU Drinking Water Directive. In this release, we have included some updates of dynamic content rules and changes to the customized data entry forms to facilitate data entry for the preparation of the two dossier types that are going to be used for this directive. And as for BPR, we have also included new validation rules for notifications of intentions and applications. And again, you can find the full details of these rules on the data validation page on the Euclid website. Now something relevant to the EU plant protection products regulation managed by EFSA. There we have improved the filtering of the mixture dossiers before they are made publicly available. There was a correction made in the way the mixture components were disseminated. We have fixed an issue with the export previous major version, which was failing when a specific type of document was included in the dossier. Our colleagues in EFSA have also worked on a new report to list the analytical methods in a new table in the so-called Appendix D. And there are also new quality rules and improvement to existing rules that are used for the dossiers prepared under this context. And finally, I wanted to mention one small change done for the Australian ECIS domain, where we have updated links to use and exposure information in two documents that are used by Australia. That was all for me for today with this introduction. Next in the agenda, we have a series of demo of improvements to the user interface done by my colleagues Robin and Eduardo. And Robin will also give you some more information about important technical changes done to Euclid installations with this release. And Robin will also give you some information about how you can ask for help when working with Euclid, and he will also conclude the webinar. But for now, I hand over to my colleague Robin to show you some improvements we made to the user interface. Thank you and see you next time.
Thank you, Francois. Hello, my name is Robin Allen. I'm in the Euclid team here at ECHA. I write user documentation for Euclid and help to maintain the Euclid website. Here I'm going to introduce some of the changes made to the interface in this service release. The first thing you will notice when opening the interface for this service release is that the counts of substances, mixtures and articles have been split into counts of raw data sets and dossiers. These counts contain links to the list pages. I will click here on the icon for substance raw datasets. We can now see a list page. The button to switch between the two list pages has been retained here. Clicking on it shows the list of dossiers. This change allows users to get from the dashboard straight to the listing they need in a single click. Next, a new method has been added of entering a range of dates. It employs a calendar type view on which two dates can be selected. The method may be employed in different places within the interface. I will show its use to filter the list of dossiers by modification date. To do that, select Advanced Search, then scroll down to the field for modification date. The new method is accessed from the calendar icon here. Note that the current day is selected by default. Navigate in the calendar to the start date. On selecting it, it is coloured deep purple. Then navigate towards the end date. Note that a trail of dashes is created between the start date and the current hovered date. Clicking on the end date enters both dates into the fields here. The dates can be deleted and new values entered, either manually or from the calendar view. The next change I will introduce is an improvement to the import of a raw dataset. It is accessed on the dashboard. In the blue part of the import area here. Note the overwrite settings in this menu here. The default is if newer than existing. The improvement is that this value is applied to all of the entities and documents to be imported, rather than having to set the values individually. In this example, I will change the value to replace. When I import a raw dataset, like this, you can see that all the entities are set to replace. In the previous version of Euclid, it was necessary to change each of these individual menu items per entity. Thus, the new behaviour saves time and effort. And now I hand over to Eduardo, who will continue this demo of changes to the interface.
Thank you, Robin. My name is Eduardo Vencesla, and I'm a member of the Euclid team. In the next minutes, I'm going to show you some of the new features that come with the latest release of Euclid. One of them would be the legal entity of the Euclid user interface inherited to submitting legal entity upon working context selection. Another one would be another improvement to allow reordering the records reference in multi-reference fields. The third improvement will be the support displaying the rich field text content in entire document pane. And the new feature will be how do we have added the advanced settings when generating reports for dossiers. Let's go to it. So now I'm going to present some of the new features in Euclid. When a user creates an entity, for example, a substance or mixture dataset, by default, the working legal entity of the user is assigned to the entity. You can view this under section 1.1, identification of the substance dataset. For this example, the working context I have selected to prepare our dataset is the REACH registration 1 to 10 tones standard requirements. From now on, whenever a dataset is being prepared for a particular submission and the working context has been selected, like in this example, Euclid reassigns the submitting legal entity by default to the dossier header to facilitate the identification of the dossier. And this is what you can see here. I'll go back now to another new feature. Okay. When adding the bibliographic reference of the study report or reference to the publication your study summary is based on, it is now possible to sort them as needed. For that, you can click on the list of references and drag one of them, the one that you need to put in the correct position, and you drag it. And after that, you need to click Save in order to confirm the changes. So now you can see how this has been updated. This feature is convenient, for example, to ensure that you always enter the primary reference in the first position whenever there are more than one reference to be cited. I will stay in this record to show you another feature in Euclid. In certain fields, users need to edit a large text content, make use of the format and style capabilities of Euclid, or edit tables, for example. Until now, users could only see a small fraction of the text in the screen, and you can also expand it, as you can see here. But now, Euclid allows a full screen mode. You can do that by pressing on this button. You can see the whole field has expanded to the full view. And you can exit that view by pressing Escape or clicking on the full screen icon again. And this can be very useful, as I mentioned, to edit large text content. And now I will show you now the last improvement that I planned for the demo today. And that is the advanced settings for dossier when generating reports. Until now, the advanced settings for the report generator was only available when generating reports for datasets. I'm going to open the dossier. But now it is also available for dossiers following the three dots button in each of the reports is available for each of the working context selected. So in advanced settings, the users can select the detail level of the document fields, the flags, the flags for confidentiality, and the regulatory programs. The annotations and some other features, including the selection of the documents to be included in the report, is also available. So you can select here. And then after a few seconds, this is available. And you will be able to deselect whatever you want to filter when generating the report.
Thank you, Eduardo. We now move on to technical changes made to installations of Euclid. The main change is that Java, in which the Euclid runs, has been upgraded from Java 8 to Java 11. This has been done as part of the continuous development of the Euclid application. Euclid 6 no longer works with Java 8, so the upgrade is compulsory and applies to both the server and desktop versions. The Euclid Updater tool updates the Java that is delivered with Euclid. You can see here in the interface of the Updater tool that the option to upgrade Java cannot be switched off. If the Euclid is using some other installation of Java, such as a system installation, ensure that it is Java 11. Euclid 6 in the Echo Cloud services will be upgraded automatically. Some other technical changes have also been made. although these do not require action on the part of a system admin. They include the removal of some unused code and an upgrade of Payara 5, which is the application server in which Euclid 6 runs. This is the component used to make Euclid 6 available via a web browser to multiple simultaneous users. There have been changes to the application programming interfaces, or APIs, that are used for internal communication within Euclid. Please note that this does not affect the public API that is described on the Euclid website. However, the public API has been improved for report generation, for which the documentation will be updated soon. One more technical change relates to how, in some cases, after deletion of data, unused attachments were being left behind in the database. This has been fixed, and checks have been added to remove such attachments. Next, we have the removal of the Web Start page. This has been used by system admins to provide users with access to Euclid 6 server. Due to the technical upgrades, it is no longer available and references to it should be removed. The address of the Euclid interface, which was linked from this button here, has not changed. It is the host address followed by the path as indicated here, Euclid 6-web. The hyphen is the same character as a minus sign. The next item is an improvement that was requested by users of the Euclid 6 server who want to be able to see immediately which instance of Euclid they are accessing. This was done by allowing a server admin to define a title for the browser tab. The title can be configured by an admin who enters it into a settings file like this. In the example here, the title is Euclid 6 Production. Now I will point out some sources of help with Euclid. Firstly, there is help available via the Euclid interface. The question mark above the data window here is a link to the built-in user manual. It describes the functionality of the interface. In the top bar here, there are links to external sources of information, which include links to legislation-specific manuals on the ECHO website, the FAQ on the Euclid website, the Euclid group on LinkedIn, our own YouTube video channel, and finally here a link to the contact page on the ECHO website, which opens up the page shown on the next slide. On the contact page, select Technical Support and then Euclid 6. The more detailed information you can provide in this form right from the start, the quicker a solution will be found to your query. Help desk staff have asked me to emphasize that when creating a help desk ticket, you can attach screenshots and supply files from the Euclid installation that may contain vital information. Here we have the paths to the files and the file names. This can include both log files and settings files. For log files, check that the relevant period is included. Don't forget, you can sign up to Euclid News Alerts to receive emails on the latest releases and any important announcements. To sign up, log in to the Euclid website, go to My Account, then tick the appropriate box or boxes. There are typically about 10 emails a year. So to conclude the webinar, let's recap what we have gone through in the webinar overall. The new release is available from the Euclid website. This is a service release, so there are no changes to the Euclid data format. The release focuses on bug fixes and improvements. For a list of these and more details, see the release notes, which are on the Euclid website. During the webinar, we have a question and answer session in Slido, which is open today until 3 o'clock Helsinki time. The code to join the session in Slido is Euclid 2024. You can keep your questions anonymous if you like. The questions and answers will be published on the webinar page in the near future. Thank you for attending the webinar, and goodbye for now from the Euclid team.